Welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique, the podcast series where we chat about shit with inspirational people from all walks of life. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and inspiring Ant Andrews. We hope you enjoy this conversation. Ant, welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I've seen loads of your little podcasts and a few clips on TikTok and Instagram, etc. So, I feel very honoured and humbled to be welcomed along.
Oh, thank you. We're really honoured to have you. Today's topic, and we've been going back and forth on what this should be, but we've decided that today's topic is going to be advocating for the community. Yeah. I've seen how much work you have done towards this already, and I have no doubt you're going to continue to do so. So I'm really looking forward to chatting about it.
Yeah, no, me too. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's something that I am quite passionate about, even though I'll be honest, I haven't done quite a lot recently because life's been very busy. So I'm now hopefully now things are calming down. I can get back on the saddle, as it were, and carry on advocating and showing the shit bag, as it were. So yeah, it'll be good.
Showing the shit bag, I love that. To begin with, before we kind of dive on in, would you mind introducing yourself and just talking a little bit about your journey with ulcerative colitis?
Yeah, of course. So I'm sure a lot of your wonderful listeners and people that follow will already know me, but if you don't, my name is Ant, or otherwise known as IBD Life. I've had I suffered with ulcerative colitis all the way since 2008. So the end of 2008, early 2009. So it's almost 15 years now.
Oh wow,
that's crazy.
Long time.
Yeah, and yeah, just like most people, you one day you're fine, the next day you've got the shits and you're not feeling very good. And at the time I was at university, I very much thought all I'm doing is I'm going out drinking, I'm going out partying. I'm not sleeping a lot, so that's probably my body telling me to stop doing what you're doing. Try and eat some proper food, maybe get some fibre in there or something.
Maybe not a McDonald's for the fifth day in a row.
Yeah, kebabs, things, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll be brutally honest, went to the doctor, had some Imodium, all those sorts of things, and it just didn't go away. And then things started to get worse. Like I was passing blood, feeling quite weak, passing out, that sort of stuff. And very common to a lot of people that are listing, very, very common symptoms.
Yeah.
Went to the doctors. They said, you'll have some blood tests and then we'll sort of go from there. And I kept being passed backwards and forwards between my university campus doctors and my home doctors. And you get to do all that those really fun and, interesting, delightful tests of, can we have a sample of your stool? And, I still have memories of, how am I going to collect this? What's the best method of doing this? And they give you a tiny little tube with a tiny little bit. You're like, how? Anyway, without being too
totally agree.
So I did all those tests, went to my doctors, and my doctor said, well, I've got some good news and bad news. And he did joke. He said, good news is you're not pregnant, so that's always good. To sort of break the ice. I was like, okay, great, obviously. And he said, but unfortunately, everything's normal. So I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, all your levels are in the normal range and stuff like this. And I said, well, I don't really understand because you saw my stool sample, it's all blood. And he went, yes, but there's nothing in my tests that can tell me what's wrong. So I think we'll refer you to a specialist. Went to the specialist. Specialist just, said, I'll be really blunt with you, man. We're going to do a procedure called a colonoscopy. I'm going to give you this, what's it called, Movi prep or bowel evacuant stuff. Again, a wonderful, delicious treat for your insides.
Delightful evening.
2 days. Drink this and then we'll do a colonoscopy, and then we'll get some results hopefully quite quickly. And I remember that so well. Just being, everyone who's had the bowel prep stuff, you drink it and you go, is it safe? No, run. And then you sat in the toilet for the next 6 to 8 hours. Just the whole world is falling out your backside, and then you go and have a colonoscopy. And I remember talking to my doctor at the time, my consultant. And I said, "Can I ask how you got into this?" Lots of people have specialties that they go into, like neurosurgery or cardiac, respiratory, diseases. Why did you choose people's digestive tracts, or more importantly, the colon? And he said, if you're a specialist in an area that people tend not to talk about, you then become a better specialist. I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Did the old camera trick. You've got ulcerative colitis. Great. 19-year-old or 1920. What does that mean? You'll be taking this medication pretty much forever now, I reckon. Here's some steroids, not the anabolic kind. They're all safe. We'll just monitor you. And the next sort of, let's say, 9, 10, 11 years was just more medication, steroids, remission, dipping, just over and over and over as a very long cycle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just had enough of it. The medication side effects were getting a bit too extreme. Some days I feel even worse from having to have medication. So I said, look, why can't I? Let's have surgery. I want to do this. If I get rid of my colon, I'm not going to be in pain. I'm not going to have any issues. I spoke to my consultants and they said, it's up to you, mate. And I said, well, only way I can describe this is if you had a gangrenous hand, why would you keep your hand? You cut it off. Yes, you wouldn't be able to use your hand anymore, but your quality of life would be so much better. And that's what I decided to do. And then, fast forward to surgery just before lockdown. Let's cut it out. I was in hospital for a little while and the rest is history. I'm running around showing the world my little shit bag and advocating to people that have got this disability and people who have invisible illnesses to say it's all right. It's, even though you may be scared to have surgery, your life can be so much better because of it.
I'm really glad that you are, by the way, running around showing your shit bag and telling everybody how wonderful it is. I didn't realise that you... I didn't really... Yeah, we'll dig into that a bit later. But I didn't realise that you had actually asked to have the surgery. That's really interesting and not a story we always hear. Yeah. I'd love to dig a little bit into two things. Specifically, what life was like for you before surgery. Like, what were those periods of remission versus being, in the midst of something quite horrendous? And also, I'd love to talk about the drugs that you were on and what those side effects look like, because there's I think there's quite a lack of conversation around actually, everything has a consequence, and what does that look like?
Yeah, no, of course. Okay, so before surgery, my consultants basically said surgery will be the last step because we want to exhaust all avenues before that because you're quite young. We don't want to have to put you through that sort of surgery. It's quite life-changing, etc. And we can probably manage this conservatively to start with. So what would tend to happen was the first round of drugs I was given was in the mesalazine family, Mesavant. Massive tablets, massive brown tablets like that, and take 7 little prednisolone steroids. Do that for 12 weeks, whatever your course is. Then when your steroids finish, carry on with your Mesavant, and then we'll see. And to be honest, every single time, here's a new piece of medication, or this is it. You're kind of just hoping, and that's the only way I can describe it. Is things will work. The first time around, I remember this incredibly well. I was working in Sainsbury's and I'd been taking my medication for about 6 months. And I was closing the store up with one of my colleagues and I went to the toilet and I had a normal bowel movement. And I text my friend, I text my mum saying, remember this day, remember this hour, I have had a normal poo. I can't believe it. It was the most satisfying and uplifting feeling that I've ever had. And I went, great. Now, if I carry on doing what I'm doing, things should be fine. And that continued for a year or two, I'd say. Every now and then you'd get flare-ups. Every now and then you'd have to think about, so what did I eat that caused that flare-up? Or did I go out and drink too much? Are there things that I should try and avoid more? And a lot of your life then just becomes trial and error, guesswork. Yeah. And one thing that only really hit me after surgery was how's your mental state? Not necessarily mental health, but how stressed are you? And it's actually something that I'll talk about later on that I get now, because when I am, say, quite stressed or I'm worried about something, because I still have my rectum will produce more mucus. And I'll then be like, oh, I have to go to the toilet. And I've noticed I only get those periods with stress. So for me, fundamentally, stress was one of the key contributors to having a flare-up. And a lot of the medications that we had were, you just start from the bottom and work your way up the pyramid. So going into things like azathioprine, which is okay. Didn't have that many bad side effects for myself, but you give that to patients that are having kidney and organ transplants and stuff like that. So when you start to sit with your doctors and they say, we're going to put you on this one, these are the side effects because we normally give these to this patient, that's when it sort of dawns on you that actually you're not very well. This isn't something that, and again, I'm sure people will say, have you tried yoga, or did you eat kale, or all the things anyway? Something I couldn't manage through diet alone. And I tried that. I tried the juices. I tried, aloe vera shots and drinks, and if you named it, I tried it.
Yeah.
And we got to points where just the drugs that we were having, or say I was having, were, let's just hope this one works. And then it might work for a little while. Carry on with some steroids. Let's keep it going. And then, okay, that one's not worked. Let's try some things like biologics. Let's try some other elements. So I had, I think one drug I had was something called cyclosporin. And that was very heavy duty. I remember going to hospital and I had transfusions for, I think, 2 days.
Wow.
One was like 4 hours, and then you had another dose, but you could only have that 4 hours later. And it was kind of like that as a cycle. I think the timings might be out, but it was something like that. And I remember being in hospital being like, right, the drugs will work. We're just going to wait for them to work. And that was the only time where I remember truly thinking, I'm really not well. Because I'm on the same ward as a lot of chemotherapy patients and individuals that are really not well. And I'm in the same ward. And even though I was sitting there laughing and joking and being very friendly, and all the doctors were like, how are you? I'm like, yeah, not bad, mate. You, how's your day going? And they're like, why are you? So I was always putting a brave face on it, but it's only in those moments you're sitting there in a chair having stuff pumped into you that you do look back at it and go, no, you weren't that well at all.
Yeah.
The things that I got with cyclosporin, which it does still affect me now, is I sometimes get tremors in my hands. Bit of an odd one, but I went to go play golf with my dad and my mate a few weeks later, and everything was fine. But I was like, I just feel a surge going through my hands. And I played golf. I literally swung the golf club like that, and I was doing that. And my dad was like, what are you doing with your hands? And I was like, yeah, it's the drugs, don't worry about it. And my mate laughed, and he was like, what drug are you on? And I was like, oh, nothing fun.
Nothing good.
No, not all the fun class stuff. This is more really crap stuff. Literally the crap stuff. And I then carried on with these drugs and having loads of blood tests, and they said, look, we're quite worried about your kidneys, your levels are getting quite out of whack here, and we're quite worried that you may fall into renal failure, so we want to take them off.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, so what's next? And they were like, we don't really know. Go back on, try azathioprine again, and then we'll see. And that's where it sort of got to the point and went, nothing's really working. So I said, I'd like to think about surgery. They offered me, I can't pronounce it, venelizumab or whatever it's called, something like that. It was a new drug at the time, and they offered me that. My doctor said it's a wonder drug that's had all these great trials and great things, but he said there's no guarantee it will work. And I remember just saying to him, but what's the point? Do you not feel like we're putting off the inevitable here? Like, I'm not somebody to do that. Why don't we just get involved and start a chat?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that sort of became the end point. And if I'm honest, when I was before surgery, I'd already started my Instagram account and things, and was sort of talking and advocating for invisible illnesses. But I connected with so many wonderful people that have been very fortunate to be on your podcast, and I'm sure will also be on your podcast if they haven't done so already. And I just asked them, like, what's bag life like? And they said, seriously, it's the best thing. Honestly, all the bits beforehand, your recovery, everything in that stage, that's going to be difficult. You're having life-changing surgery, but I have no symptoms now. I don't have to worry about what I eat. I can do what I like.
That's amazing.
I put it back on, I empty it, I take it back off. And everyone kept selling me those benefits. So I said, well, sod it, let's go for it.
So what age were you when you had your surgery?
30.
Wow, so you've really tried a lot of drugs for a long time. So when you kind of finally got there, I saw you mentioned documenting your recovery. I've seen some of the videos that you did literally from hospital day by day. What was that recovery like? It looked like some days were really bloody tough, and then other days, but you remained so positive throughout. It was incredible.
Well, thank you. I mean, I wanted to do it as a real, this is reality. I'm very much somebody that isn't like, right, I'm going to fluff it up and make it look all great and stuff. I wanted to really document the good and the bad, because that's only fair. If you're going to tell a story, you can't tell people and, through rose-tinted glasses or try and pull the wool over their eyes. And I'll be honest with you, it was challenging. It was really challenging. First couple of days were great because you're still so high on all the drugs. I felt like I could run a marathon. Honestly, I felt amazing. And then it was all about, right, let's start the proper road to recovery now. Getting pains in your shoulders because of anaesthetic, and that was really weird. That was horrendous. And then my stoma had something called ileus, so basically anaesthetic made it go to sleep. It started working, then it stopped. And I've never been more frustrated and powerless about anything in my life, because you can't control that.
No.
You can control many things, but I couldn't force it out. Like, do you know what I mean? It was just stuck. So it was, right, let's give you some NG tubes, constantly aspirating. I could only drink like literal sips. And I remember trying to bargain with the doctors, being like, please can I have some food? I'm so hungry. They're like, you can't, mate. I'm sorry, you've just got to have sips of water. And I think I lost, about 10 kilo in hospital. I think I was about 70 kilo and I went down to 60, 61, 62, which I won't recommend. It's a quick way to lose weight, but I wouldn't recommend it. And yeah, just it was very much 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. It was start working again. Right, try some food. Stoma says no. Aspirate, do it again. Throw up a lot, it was just the same constant cycle. And then I got to a point where they put me on TPN because they were like, look, you need to start eating. I was really dehydrated, really fed up. And then things started to very slowly work. And the reason why everything stopped working was, this is odd, my consultant and the team said, your abdominal muscles are too strong. Like, what? Oh. Well, normally, I was like, okay, cool, abs of steel, whatever. Normally when we do the surgery is performed for either people that are very unwell or they're not as physically fit as you are. They're mainly old. So you cut the hole that's the normal size, you poke your intestine through, and they're away in 3 days. And I remember a woman on my ward who had the same surgery an hour and a bit later than me, and she left after 2 days. And I was like, how come you're going home and I'm not? I'm fitter and I'm better than you. Come on, what's going on?
Yeah, that doesn't logically compute at all, does it?
She had a sandwich and they said, right, you can go home now. I had a sandwich and I couldn't eat for another week and a half. And that was the cause of it. So they said, we're just going to monitor you and sort of see how it goes. And I kind of wish at the time they had said, let's redo the hole, make it ever so slightly wider. Because I went home for 12 weeks.
Just for clarity, sorry, the muscles being strong around it, did that mean that it constricted around the stoma? Was that what the issue was? I see. Okay.
Yeah, it was just clamping down.
Right.
Every time I'd sit down, it'd go like that, and my stoma just really didn't like it. And that's kind of understandable when your intestine isn't supposed to be in a muscular sandwich sort of thing. So yeah, you then do 12 weeks of low fibre, lots of potatoes, carbohydrates, soups and stuff like that. And that was during lockdown. So, that was really weird. I was living on my own at the time. I stayed with my parents for a little while, then lockdown fully happened. So I went and lived back to my flat. And you start making food deliveries and all those sorts of things. And you're just sleeping all day, watching telly, eating eggs, cheese, great stuff. But things kept not really working properly. And then I remember eating some soup and I was feeling so backed up. I was like, what the hell is going on? I was laying on the sofa, trying all the tricks to try and, release it, etc. It just didn't work. So I said, right, went back to hospital, saw the same consultants because they were all there. And they were like, hi, Anthony, how are you? It's not working, is it? No. Okay, let's get you into surgery. Can you do this afternoon? It was like being in private healthcare. It was so weird. Not waiting around for weeks and months. It was, we are here. Let's just do it. Before we get called away to go somewhere else, before we have to go over to, accident emergency or the trauma wards or the COVID ward, let's just get going. Did it. And then after that, touch wood, had a couple of small blockages and things, but things have been fine. Everything has worked.
So they just made the hole a bit bigger and it just went away.
Literally millimetres.
So you joked about feeling like you could run a marathon for the first 2 days. You are actually running a marathon, are you not?
Yes, I am.
What made you decide to do something so crazy?
I mean, to be honest, I was working quite a lot with a couple of charities. I'm running for Guts UK, and I've always wanted to run a marathon, even before I got sick. Because again, it's a big challenge, and again, I kind of want to show a lot of people who are not, who are doubting themselves in terms of achieving something or doing something, just enter it, just do it. And I thought, well, why don't I do it with a bag? And they rang me and said, we've got a place. Would you like it? I was like, yeah, 100%. I'd love to do it.
Wow.
So I'm going to do that. Not this Sunday, the following Sunday.
That's so exciting. Good luck. You'll do amazingly. What's the training been like? And I suppose this is a slightly silly question because you weren't training for a marathon, to my knowledge, before having a bag. However, is the training with a bag any different?
Yes. The only reason is when you go running before, you haven't got to wear supports or belts or anything like that, really. And you need to be much more on your hydration levels before you go running, and you need to keep your energy levels up and stuff like that. Because you can go running without a bag, and then you'll have no issues or whatever. You go to the toilet when you go home. You can't stop this. This is a tap. Yeah. So there are times where you'll be running and you just see your shirt just start to go like that. You're like, oh, okay, right, well, that's fine. And there are times where if you run for very long distances, if you've got your bag in place, sometimes it can rub and then it can sometimes bleed. So sometimes take your bag off and you're like, oh, crap, wow, okay. Let's clean that up. Everything's fine, but there's those little things that you don't have to think about when you were running before to as you are now. But fundamentally, it's the same. You just run. Same with any sport. Play rugby, go to the gym, weightlift. It's the same. Just be sensible.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder if you would mind talking about mental health, if you're comfortable doing so.
Of course. I mean, it's my job to stand up and talk in front of people. And I guess that's probably why I like doing this as well, because it's kind of like my job as well. I just chat to people all day and talk about experiences and things. So, of course, what would you like to know about mental health?
Well, I wondered what, if any, impact being ill with ulcerative colitis had on your mental health, and then the same thing about having stoma surgery, the impact that had.
Yeah, so, I mean, pre-surgery, when I look back on it now, very much everything I was doing was just putting a brave face on it. I was exhausted all of the time. If you go into the toilet 30 plus times a day and you're not able to eat, you're not doing stuff, you're physically exhausted, but your brain is also mentally exhausted. And in the role that I do, yes, I stand up and I train people, I talk to people, and I have to manage lots and lots of people in various countries or whatever. But doing that when you're ill and you've got brain fog and you're worrying about your health, etc., is exhausting. And you have to. You're the guy. You're the one that's doing everything all day. You've got to be smiley. It's kind of like being a comedian in a certain sense at times, and because you're working with so many people, you are almost like playing a stand-up role. So when you then go home, you go, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. That's when you start to really the weight sort of starts to go on top of you a little bit. I didn't really I didn't get depressed or anything, but I was always anxious about, am I going to have a good day today? Am I going to have to run off to the toilet? Am I going to be able to stand up all day, or am I going to have to sit down in a chair? How's my day going to be? And during that time, I was obviously worried about that, and I was also worried about what it's like, because I was single through those periods. What's this going to be like with dating and speaking to girls and others, and be like, "Hi, my name's Ant. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to go for a shit. I'll be back. Don't worry. Hi, where were we? 1 second." That was like how everything was. And I've always been someone to laugh and joke about it and talk about it. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with talking and joking about things, but I never take myself too seriously, and I think that's how I dealt with it. Whether that's good or not, this isn't a psychology episode, so we probably won't be into that too much.
I think there's worse ways.
Well, yeah, that's how I sort of dealt with it. And then after surgery, because I wanted it and I planned it, I'd already started to mentally prepare for it. I know there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this that haven't got that luxury. It may have been an emergency surgery or something that would have been sprung upon them. And for me, yes, body image is important to me, but my health was more important. I don't get me wrong. I look back at photos of me pre-surgery, and I was in really good shape, but I was very unwell. Now I'm fit, but I'm nowhere near as physically fit, and in terms of like body image as I was before. But I've got a bag, and I don't know. My bag sort of helps give me that little bit of identity, and it certainly helps me advocate better because people can physically see it. And I've always thought of it going, well, this has saved my life. Like, this has given me my life back, so I don't really care. And I've been, very fortunate that I've met my fiance after getting my surgery. I can talk all about dating and stuff like that, so that's fine. There's no issues, and having to be intimate with a bag, things you don't really think about, is great. But every time I've spoken about her, it doesn't really bother me, and it's become part of our everyday. So there's times where he's farting or all these silly things. It really doesn't matter, and she thinks it's cool. She can't. She met me just before my surgery, and she's like, can't remember a time without your bag or everything that you've had. So it's not an issue at all. So yeah, if there are people that are considering surgery, one thing that really did help in terms of preparing mentally was you can apply for some test kits. So you can go to some of the major manufacturers, and they'll send you a bag with a little fake squidgy rubber stoma. Stick it on, walk around all day. I did that for a good week.
Not getting used to it.
Yeah.
That's really clever.
Because I was like, well, if this is going to happen, what's it going to feel like? Can I wear clothes? Can I do that? And it really sort of it alleviated a lot of my stress that I was having around, right, what's this going to be like? So yeah, that's kind of it. And the biggest tip is just, if you've got close family and friends or people you want to talk to, or even if not, talk to people that are friends with yourself on Instagram and social media. Just talk to people. Just, everyone has gone probably through the same thing that you have, or very, very similar experiences. So as long as someone's there to listen and can empathise with you, then you should be pretty much all set.
I would love to dive into dating and intimacy, but before we do that, something that a lot of ostomates have told me, which I find quite upsetting, is that they've felt a level of isolation either before their surgery or after surgery from their kind of maybe childhood friends or people that were around them or acquaintances who sometimes saw them as, or told them that they were flaky if they had to pull out of arrangements or didn't know how they were going to feel on a particular day. And that they felt isolated and it affected those relationships. Did you ever experience that? And do you have any advice for people? Because it feels like it's something that's quite commonly experienced.
So I only really got this on a very small scale. It's only one or two people. And if I'm really honest, it was because I was so open with me and my condition and colitis and stuff. Everybody knew. So if I'm not feeling well, I say, I'm sorry, guys, I'm shooting myself. I'll catch up with you later on. I think I went to do a Tough Mudder. In fact, I even entered a triathlon. I was too unwell to do.
Glutton for punishment you are, aren't you?
Again, probably another psychological thing we'll have to unpack at some point. I remember looking at, and I just said, I'm really sorry, guys, I cannot get off the toilet today. I cannot. It's like The Shining at the moment. Let's just call it a day. You guys crack on. I'll stay at home. And I didn't really lose that many friends. I may have lost one or two along the way, but they're not worth it, are they? All of my friends and all of my family have been incredibly supportive, and I think that's why we are also very, very good friends, because some of my friends have got their own things going on in their lives and stuff like that, and I always sit there. It's really interesting because you get to a certain age, right? I'm getting to 33 now. I'm due to be married. I've booked all those sorts of things, which is great. Thank you very much. And some of my friends have already got mortgages. They're being very successful in their career, but there's something that's not quite right in their career and stuff like this. And I always say to them, guys, all of you have got your health. All of you have got the basics and stuff like that. We're all at different journeys and different points, so it really doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. And it's always interesting to see it from their perspective, because if they haven't had to deal with a chronic illness or a disability for so long, their priorities and focus have changed, and they're focusing on, well, how do I get my next house, or when do I have children? Everyone's got the same stuff going on. It's just people don't want to hear or necessarily listen to others. If you're cancelling an event because I have to stay home with my children, and then friends aren't going to be, if your friends are cancelling on you, that seems a bit of a poor move to do. But some people will be like that, and everyone has got stuff going on. I just feel like if people are going to say, oh, because you got a bag or because you're not very well, I don't want to be a friend anymore, they were never worth it. They were never going to be your friend anyway. They were probably there for a transactional reason anyway, so which I think is really unfair. If there are people that are worried, just talk to people about it. It's much easier said than done, don't get me wrong. Maybe you do it on a social event or an evening and stuff like that. Maybe you have some Dutch courage, or maybe you just be frank and honest and open to someone and say, look, I've got this condition. I'm going to cancel every now and again. I don't need anything from you. It doesn't affect you at all. If I'm really unwell, and I'll let you know, just send me a text message saying, hope you're all right, or a thumbs up or an emoji or whatever. I don't care. And if over time that means that you drift apart, that means you drift apart. Doesn't mean it's over. But the ones that will keep coming back and will keep being there for you, they're your true friends. They're the people you can lean on. And I'm sure if they was on the same boat, you'd be offering them exactly the same assistance and advice.
I think that's a really good piece of advice, to you be really honest about your condition and just say, I'm not asking you for anything other than understanding. That's not a lot to ask of somebody. So that's a really good point.
I think a lot of people aren't as mature as they say they are. A lot of people haven't necessarily grown up and seen things from a bigger perspective. And that's also fine. People are focusing on their own things, and sometimes people take a lot on and maybe take too much on, so they can't help, or they may spread themselves too thin, whatever. But it's everything with this condition, or anyone that's dealing with mental health or any physical condition, etc. It is tiring, it is knackering. All you expect from your friends and family is to offer the support, whether it's forthcoming or not, whether you expect them to turn up or not. It's they're saying, just hope you're okay, mate. That's it.
So I promised you we'd dive into dating and intimacy. Bet you're upset you opened that can of worms.
No. I mean, it's already all over my Instagram anyway, so it doesn't matter.
So you don't need to go into particulars if you don't feel comfortable. But were there things that you were particularly worried about from a dating and intimacy perspective? And was there anything that proved to be something you might have discovered or not needed to worry about at all.
Is this podcast going out? Is it going to go after the watershed? So how much detail do you want exactly?
We can time it for whenever is appropriate.
Kids, if you are listening, tend to put your heads in your ears at this moment in time. No, I'm really honest. The first time that you have your bag and you're looking to be intimate with your partner or stuff, I think that's going to be the biggest mental block. But it's like anything. It's the first time you're doing something new, and there's a slight adaptation that you're going to have to do. To be honest, I remember thinking before I got a bag, and even whilst having a bag and stuff like this, is a lot of people are not going to accept this. And for me, I was like, and I don't care. I accept it, so that's all I care about. And people that will accept it will therefore stay, and that's all I care about. And yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate when I met my partner, Jessica. She met me just before surgery and just after. And after surgery, I remember saying, like, obviously this is new. I've got a black bag, so it makes me look slimming. That's always nice. Black is sexy, of course.
Of course.
And yeah, I just said, what do you think? And she was like, I think it looks great. And that was it. And we just carried on. That's sort of all it was. I mean, the bag I have that I wear at the moment, not to drop a plug, but I will do, my Pelican Motor V bags, they've got a fold-up bag. So if you want to be intimate or whatever, you don't have to put on a strap or support or anything. So they kind of stay in one place, which is good. But if I'm really honest, it doesn't change anything. You can still have fun. You can still do all the things you were doing before. Some people might be worried. You can get support bands if you'd rather wear them to sort of just keep your stoma close to yourself. But again, like if I'm really honest, it's really not that big a deal. It really isn't. So just don't worry about it. I think, if I'm honest, this is going to sound really bizarre. It's given me so much more confidence because I care so much less.
That's such a freeing
feeling.
Weird,
isn't it? It's so weird. But I remember sort of saying to, when I was sort of dating and meeting people before I met my partner, I don't really care what you think. This is what's happening, so you either accept it or not. And even before that middle part of before meeting my partner, I was explaining to people this is what's going to happen. So I've elected to have it. It took a year for the surgery to come round.
Oh wow!
Again, it was how the NHS were doing it. It was, you're not that unwell, so you're not at the top of the list. We've got emergency cases, cancer patients, etc., which are priority, and you're underneath. So every time someone has their surgery, you go up the list, but then an emergency comes in, you go down. So it was always on like a 4 to 8 week block of move you along. So when I wasn't sort of dating at the time and stuff like that, I was explaining it as it will. And I met my partner on an app. So I was having to explain it all on an app to people who'd never met me before.
Did you always move with it immediately?
Yeah, I mean, not, hi, my name's Dan. I'm going to have surgery. It wasn't that. But it was more, if I started to get to know people and stuff, I'd always put my Instagram on my dating profiles because I was like, what's the point of hiding it?
Yeah.
And if I won't, don't get me wrong, I think I got more attention because of that than I would have done previously when I've been on dating apps and I haven't had my Instagram, because people said, wow, you're actually quite a, confident, interesting person. You stand out amongst the crowds of, again, I'm going to paint this with love. Lots of topless men just posing with a dog every now and again.
Or a fish. There was a fish craze for a while. Did you see those?
No, I didn't. No,
very odd.
Yeah, that is weird. But it helped me sort of stand out. I don't know what it's like in reverse. I mean, I can't speak for obviously, females or what they're dating and what guys are saying. I can probably assume that men are much less forgiving and empathetic. However, it does help you weed through all the rubbish to find those little gems of people that you want to speak to. And to be honest, when I was chatting to people, some of them were like, go and get your surgery, go and do that, and then maybe we'll talk after. Or some people said, I don't, thanks so much for everything. You're a lovely person, but it's not for me, which is fine. And yeah, when I met my partner Jessica, she just didn't care less. She was.
I don't think the right person ever would.
Well, exactly. And the stupidest thing about it was, I met her 10 days before my surgery on a complete whim. That was the 2nd of February, and I met her because I was like, sod it, it's a Sunday. I've got a couple of days off before I have my surgery. Threw me up. We'll meet up. Didn't think anything of it. And then to fast forward, on the 2nd of February in 2025, that is when we're going to get married. So 5 years to the day when I...
That's so romantic.
I know. Oh, all the people on the podcast are going to burst into tears.
Oh no, that's so lovely. That really is.
But it was all because of that moment. I was like, just go for it. And it's always been, that mantra with my bag and stuff. Just go for it. It doesn't matter. You're holding yourself back. No one else cares. Seriously, no one else cares. They really don't. There's a really interesting phrase that I always look at. I think it's called spotlight theory. We think we have a spotlight on us, and actually no one gives a shit. Everyone is just thinking about themselves. I get my bag out at like beaches and stuff like that, or in the gym or whatever, and everyone just goes, huh? That's it. No one comes up to go,
they're very busy in their own heads most of the time, aren't they?
Exactly. The people that sit on, Instagram and Twitter and troll you, etc., is because they're doing it from the comfort of their own home, because they can do. If they choose to do that, fine, whatever. But it's the same thing. You would ignore it, wouldn't you? Everything is outweighed by the positivity and those sorts of things. And I think that's why I've advocated so much that I have done, because, well, there's not a lot of men in this space that have been as vocal as I. There's a couple, I don't get me wrong, there's some even more inspiring people than myself. But I think this space is very heavily dominated by women opening up and talking. And I've always thought, but why? There are lots of men on this sort of side of the coin who should also be doing the same thing. It's okay to show your bag. It really doesn't matter. I'm not doing it for attention. I mean, don't get me wrong. My mates joke and go, "Oh, Ant's got his bag out again. IBD." But it's always been a running joke. It's just like, yep, doing it for the gram. But that's part of it. That's part of raising awareness, because people are talking about it. Even if my mates are joking, going, oh, Ant's getting his bag out again. Other people are like, what's he doing? Who may not know it. And they'll go, oh, it's because he's had life-changing surgery and he's doing it. And everyone's like, oh my God, wow. Like when I went to Ibiza with my friends a couple of years ago, I went to lots of people I've not really met before. And I'm walking around the pool with my bag out. And some people knew about me, some people didn't. But everyone wanted to talk to me about it. Everyone was like, when did this happen? My grandparents had something similar, or my family members had something similar. Like, you look so happy and healthy. Like, you wear it so well. Like, do you see what I mean? And again, it's a talking point.
Why do you think it's so important to educate and raise awareness about invisible illness and stoma surgery? Because
otherwise nothing will change. When I first got my stoma bags and stuff, it was, here is a pamphlet with lots of elderly people on it. And I went, well, that's not me. That's not my demographic. What's that going to look like on me? And I've always been someone to, I don't know, again, this might feel sort of movie stylish or whatever, or quite altruistic, if that's the correct word, but you should stick up for the little guy and you should advocate for people who are suffering in silence, because you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be so many people that will hopefully listen to this podcast, but all of your podcasts, who will sit there and feel inspired to change their behaviour bit by bit, to talk about it. And, I personally think I've achieved everything that I've wanted to achieve with my Instagram. I have people message me and say, I came across your profile, Thank you so much for being in this space. Thank you so much for talking. It's made me feel happier. It's made me talk to people I've not spoken to before. I've had people call me in floods of tears who I don't know, saying, I came across your Instagram and my daughter or my son's going to go into this surgery. What should I do? And I'm helping people. And that's always been something that's been important to me is to help others. And especially when you don't know what's going to happen next. And this is where social media is so good when it's good. Because I remember sitting in hospital thinking, if I didn't have my phone, who the flipping heck am I going to be speaking to about this? If I hadn't come across people's accounts, if I hadn't started doing what I was doing, I would be so alone. Because there's nobody in my inner circle or current circle that has this condition. There was one girl who did have it at work and we became good friends and we spoke about it, etc. But that was only sort of one experience and I wanted more and more. But yeah, that is the power of social media when it is good. And that's why your podcast, as you're doing, and very privileged to be on, chatting shit, is, that's the step change. Do you know what I mean? That's going to help move people forward. And it's only by listening to voices and stories and telling stories that people go, right, let's change. Let's do something about it.
And thank you so much for being so open, so honest, so inspiring, and just for coming on.
No, it's not a problem at all. I feel really bad because I've actually not had much conversation with yourself.
No, I've loved talking to you.
My job's always talking to more people. How have you found doing all these podcasts and taking lots of people's experiences on and stuff like that?
It's been a real mix of emotions, if I'm completely honest. Some podcasts I've finished and I've cried for a couple of hours if I have been really moved by somebody's story or felt like I wanted to help more than I've been able to do. And in most other times I've left feeling really, I can't explain, it's almost like a sense of pride for being involved with people that are so motivating and everyone's so positive and everyone wants to help one another. Like the IBD and ostomy community is something that I've never experienced before being in this role, and everybody, it seems, just wants to help one another and wants to find a sense of community and like peace with one another. So it's been a privilege to have those conversations. Thanks for asking.
What made you start this podcast then? Because if you've not been in this sort of space, I mean, lots of people either come from a background of IBD or ostomy podcasts I've done, but I think yours is one of the first I haven't. So I actually have family members who have had stoma surgery. So my uncle had a bag and my grandpa as well. But the lady that started Ostique, Stephanie, is one of my best friends, and Tony, who also works here. We went to school together, and Steph's younger brothers both have Crohn's. So while Steph was at university studying product design engineering and they had kind of stoma surgery brought up, Steph basically started Ostique to empower people in the community and to create products that make people feel better about themselves. So that's what we set out to do. And this podcast is just one arm of that. That's amazing. It's the same thing though. You see somebody that's in need. I've got an idea. Why don't we try and help that person, whether that's through fashion design or creating podcasts and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being on. It's been a delight. I'm sorry I've used up 50 minutes of your day, but I've loved every second of it.
No, don't worry. I mean, I'm more than happy to carry on chatting. That's what I do all the time anyway. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll get to have you on again. I want to have you on after the marathon to hear about what that was like.
Yeah, right. Yeah, rather than chatting with running with a shit bag or something.
Yeah, we could do a running episode. Amazing. Well, good luck with the marathon. Please let us know how it goes. And anyone that wants to sponsor you, I'm assuming we can do so via your Instagram page.
Just get the link in my bio. That'd be really, really helpful. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot.
Speak soon.
Cheers, mate.
Bye. Have you seen the new Ostique skins yet? Ostique Skins are revolutionary ostomy pouch covers that were created to make the wearer feel confident, sexy and powerful in all of life's moments. From moments of intimacy to lounging by the pool, conquering a workout or simply heading out to lunch, Skins have you covered. Even better, they're compatible with all major colostomy and ileostomy bags. Ostique Skins are available in a range of colours and skin tones, and they're made from a revolutionary material that's completely waterproof, high quality, soft and comfortable. Skins are easy to use, even with reduced dexterity, and they work with both closed and drainable bags. Plus, Skins are also environmentally friendly and vegan. There are 4 bundles available to buy now, and you can also purchase individual skins. Head to ostique.co.uk to find out more.